بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. So I think we left off, we were talking about loving for the sake of Allah and disliking, or it's interesting, the word they use is al-bughd fi sabilillah, al-bughd fillah. They don't say karahiyya. Yeah. I'll make this point and then I'll bring it up. And I think, and you don't find in the Quran the word kurh or karahiyya, which means hatred, used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about al-zalimeen or al-kafirin, it says wallahu la yuhibbu al-zalimin, wallahu la yuhibbu al-fasiqeen. It doesn't say Allahu yakrahu al-fasiqeen. So He does not love the fasiqeen, He does not love al-zalimeen. And these words in Arabic, fasiq, zalim, hatta kafir, they're attributes. It's not talking about anyone specifically. And the only way that you can be embodied by that adjective or that attribute is if you're doing something that's zulm, that's oppressing, or fisq, that's corruptive, which means it's a state. It's not who you are. It can change. So even the zalim, right, even the fasiq, even the kafir, it's not necessarily a permanent state, right, because they can change. And so we don't despise people because of their personhood. That would go against what this is saying, right? Because it says, أَنْ يُحِبُّ الْمَرْأَةَ لَا يُحِبُّهُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. So to love the human being, a fellow person, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It didn't say to despise the same human being, it says to love them. So like I said before, the basic common denominator is their humanity. Every person has that, no matter what they've done. So on that level, there's a type of sacrosanctity, respect. That's why the Prophet ﷺ forbade practices that dehumanize people, like al-muthla fil harb. Al-muthla means to desecrate the body, even if it's someone killed in battle. You know, to like cut their heads off and put them on a stake. That came later on. That was not a practice of the Prophet ﷺ, you know, to desecrate a body like that. And he would bury, you know, whether it would be a not-Muslim or non-Muslim. There's a certain sanctity towards the human form, the human body, that should be, because it embodies a soul. And that soul, it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the angels, He said, إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرٌ مِّن طِينٍ فَإِذَا نَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. I am creating a bashar, a human being, from teen, from clay, Adam originally. But then the important part, فَإِذَا نَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. But if I put something of my soul, my spirit, that's what the Arabic said, ruhi, into him, فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. Then you are to prostrate before him. So as if it's saying it's not the bashariyah. Bashar means, or bashara means the skin. So it's not our physical makeup that ennobles us. It's that divine aspect. When Allah said that He put something of His spirit within us. What that exactly means, no one really knows. That's not the important part. The important part is, this is what, it's on this point that hinges our sanctity and our nobility. Because we have that. Right? When one of the Sahaba, he was in a state of janaba, you know, he had sexual relations with his wife, and he went out. Not everybody had a shower in the house. Sometimes you have to go out and look for. So he saw the Prophet ﷺ from far away, and he was shy for him to. So he turned around and went around the corner. The Prophet ﷺ found him. He said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Yani, Ya Rasulullah, ana najas, ana junub. You know, I'm najas, I'm filthy." He said, "Al-mu'min la yanjus." He said, "The believer, that's not a state that happens to them." Because najasa doesn't make sense with the idea of the sanctity of the human state, of the human soul. You can be in a particular state that has ritual, legal, sharia ramifications, that's something else. But to be considered filthy, no. So The idea of when we despise the attributes, the particular actions in a person, not their particular humanity. That's why it's, when we see sometimes Muslims, they'll make caricatures of people they dislike, like physical caricatures, and paint them in a way that's really despicable. And I've seen some of these books that they print in the Middle East, and it'll have it'll draw a picture of a kafir with bulging eyes and like a pointy eyes and peering eyes, and really caricature them in a way that's, Allah didn't tell us to do that. You don't have to do that to get the message to me that kufr is not nice and you might go to hell. I don't need that particular caricature in front of me. But people don't understand these meanings that we're talking about. That was not the practice of the Prophet ﷺ or the Sahaba or any of those first three blessed generations. So we despise the action, we despise the sin, but we know that person, al-ibra bil khawatim, that what's going to happen to them, whether we call them actually kafir. There is a school of thought within theology that says mu'min and kafir are actually designations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So some of them said, can you say ana mu'min insha'Allah? This was an old theological argument. So the ones who said that it's a state of how you're going to end up, the state you're going to die in, then it's perfectly legitimate to say ana mu'min insha'Allah. I'm a believer insha'Allah. The others who opposed that said, no, mu'min is your state. Do you believe now or you don't believe? So you don't say insha'Allah after. But the important point here is that the idea of even an iman and kufr is something really that's not going to be known and determined until you die. That's what counts, the state that you die in. So no matter how despicable that person is in front of you, there is always the potential they will die in a better state than you. And who knows, they could. So they say that you're not really, you're not a complete believer until you think everyone is better than you are. I thought about this, like, how can I accept that? How can I think everyone's better than me when I see clearly people are doing things that I'm trying to stay away from? But if you think about, that's right now, like they say, today's sinner can be tomorrow's saint. No one knows. So it's better to be on the safe side, and we dislike particular actions, but always have respect for one's humanity, no matter who they are. That's a different. I'll answer that at the end, but keeping company with people, certain things, that's a different issue. Here I'm just talking about, the basic premise of respect for human beings as they're human beings, and to love at least the humanity within them. And if you can find the humanity in someone, even though they do things you don't like, then I think that's the meaning of this particular part of the hadith. That's a sweetness of faith. Someone who has a faith that is active and it's not passive, and it enlivens them, it enlightens them, they can find these things. Most of the time, I think when people hate other people, it's more about having to do with themselves, than what that other person is doing. Right? Because if you're in a good state, then you have a tendency to have a good opinion of other people, and the world isn't so black to you. But if you're in a bad state, you tend to see everything else as bad. You tend to see everyone else as conniving. If you're conniving, you tend to see everyone else as conniving. If you're wicked, you can't imagine that no one else is wicked. Right? And that's kind of the justification people have.
But like when you are trusting of the people and then they take advantage of you and they rip you off or whatever, do nasty stuff to you, and you get bitten by them.
No, we didn't say be stupid. Right? We don't say that, like Omar said, he's not someone who's conniving, nor is he connived by others. And he took the precaution. But here we're talking on a general level, a general plane, that we have to have respect for other people and try to see the humanity within them, not dehumanize them. good. The world looks beautiful and green and nice. And when you're a bad mood, the world looks relaxed and beautiful. Especially if you really sick. But a qalb al-mu'min, the heart of the believer, they're always in line with that. The Sahaba, Ridwanullah alayhim, they didn't have bad mood, good mood like we do. In their state, we talk more about qabd and bast. So their heart may contract at times, or it may be spread. The spreading of the heart is a metaphor for them being in a state where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them inshirah, He's giving them good signs, and they're seeing the jamali aspect of Allah, the beauty aspect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The qabd, or the contraction, which is also a metaphor, it's a metaphor for seeing the jalali aspect, the awe-inspiring, like we said last week, awe-inspiring magnificence aspect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to know Him by both. We need to know Him by both. But that does not mean that if we're in the contracted state, that we can just treat people any which way we want because the world looks black to us. But the Sahaba had a sort of steady increase in their iman. And you see that. Look at Umar. Look at some of the Sahaba, the way they were and then the way they become afterwards. So I want to go to the next part so we can get through some of this. Because we're only on the second hadith of the 40. And then the last one, أن يكره أن يعود في الكفر كما يكره أن يدخل في النار. So here we see the word kufr, hate. The hate to return to kufr, disbelief, like they would be hate to be thrown into the fire. And here kufr has two meanings. There is al-kufr al-bawah, al-sarih, outright kufr, which is really just a magnification of the lesser kufr. So we know the major kufr is to deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The lesser kufr is to deny the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His blessings. And the lesser one could lead to the greater one. That was Shaitan's downfall. Right? Shaitan obviously knew that's Allah. He believed in Him, he worshipped Him. He actually kind of spoke to Him, as the Quran says. He asked Him, he made a dua and Allah answered his dua. Did you know that? Shaitan made dua in the Quran and Allah answered his dua. What did he say? Right. رَبِّ انظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ قَالَ إِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنظَرِينَ. Sounds like dua to me. So his kufr was not that. His kufr was a denial of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he refused to prostrate before Adam alayhi salam, and he said, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. I am better than him, I am from fire, he is from clay. His tongue was saying this, but his heart was saying, Allah, you have wronged me. How could you ask me to pray before this lesser creature, to prostrate before this lesser creature? In other words, you have wronged me. And to say that Allah wrongs you, that's kufr. That is kufr. And it began with his denial of the bestowing the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's al-kufr bin ni'mah, kufr of the blessings, which is not outright kufr. And then what leads, which is even worse to that, is to lead to denial of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to begin with. So we don't want to return to any of them, because one might ask, well, some people were never like in a state of kufr. Maybe they're born into Islam or they accepted Islam readily, they never really denied it, so who's this talking about? It's talking about both of them. Both the kufr of the ni'mah, of the blessing, and the kufr of the major kufr that comes about afterwards. So that means that the things that makes things sweet for you, loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet more than anything else, in other words, preferring them over everything, and from amongst the signs of that mahabbah, of that love, is preferring them over everything. That means preferring Allah and His Prophet's commands over your own desires, and avoiding what they told you to avoid. Right? How can you claim love when you don't do that? They said al-hub al-ittiba'. Love is following the command of the beloved. This love. قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم. Say if you truly love Allah, فاتبعوني, follow the Prophet ﷺ, and Allah will love you and forgive your sins. Quran. So it's about that type of love. It's about also recognizing if the first one is a horizontal love, a vertical love, then the second is horizontal. Vertical, you and the Creator, those above you, like the Prophet ﷺ, and then those who are on the same plane as you, horizontal, which is the khalq, which is everybody else. Right? That's why people who claim religiosity, who claim diyana and firmness in faith, but they treat people terribly, and no one can stand to be around them, something's wrong. You're doing it wrong. If you pray tahajjud and you give a lot of sadaqah and zakah and things like this, and you're the first one in line in the masjid, but people can't stand to be around you, you're doing it wrong. Something's not right. Because one should be a natural outward manifestation of the first. Prayer is supposed to lead you to be more humble. It's supposed to make you a nicer person to be around. It's supposed to prevent you from saying wicked things and acting in a wicked way. But if you have a sharp tongue, if you treat people poorly, despite your prayer, then look to yourself and look to how you're actually doing your prayer, because you're probably doing it wrong. And then the idea, another state of the heart, the third one, to give the proper shukr for all of Allah's blessings, proper gratitude, knowing that it all comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing comes from yourself. Okay, so I think we're ready for the third one. So at least to start it. عن عبادة بن الصامت رضي الله عنه وكان شهد بدرا وهو أحد النقباء ليلة العقبة أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قال وحوله عصابة من أصحابه بايعوني على ألا تشركوا بالله شيئا ولا تسرقوا ولا تزنوا ولا تقتلوا أولادكم ولا تأتوا ببهتان تفترونه بين أيديكم وأرجلكم ولا تعصوا في معروف فمن وفى منكم فأجره على الله ومن أصاب من ذلك شيئا فعوقب في الدنيا فهو كفارة له ومن أصاب من ذلك شيئا ثم ستره الله فهو إلى الله إن شاء عفى عنه وإن شاء عاقبه فبايعناه على ذلك. Ubadah ibn Samit, who had witnessed the Battle of Badr, participated in it, and one of the representatives on the night of Aqaba, the first bay'ah, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said in the presence of a large group of his companions, give me your oath of allegiance, that you will not associate anything with Allah, that you will not steal, that you will not commit adultery, that you will not kill your children, that you will not falsely accuse, and that you will not disobey in what is good. Whoever fulfills this amongst you, his reward is with Allah. And whoever commits one of these matters, then gets punished in this world, it is an expiation for him. Whoever commits one of these matters but is shielded by Allah, it is up to Allah. If He wishes, He will forgive him, and if He wishes, He punishes him. فَبَايَعْنَاهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. Actually, that last line should be, so we gave him allegiance upon this, not give me your allegiance upon this. If you want to fix the translation. It might be another riwayah. Yes, in my version it says bay'anahu means we gave him our allegiance based upon this. So Ubadah ibn Samit was from Ahl al-Madinah, Khazraji, and he was one of the original 12 who gave their allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ on the first Aqaba. Sometimes this oath is called so he's one of the 12, and here he's describing this was while the Prophet ﷺ was still in Mecca. He had not made his his hijrah yet. They had come during the pilgrimage and they met in a place next to Mina, close to Mina, and they gave him this oath. And so this was like a precursor before they went on the hijrah to Al-Medina. And in Al-Medina or Yathrib at the time, this is where the Prophet ﷺ found where many of the people, even before he got there, already had accepted Islam. And so there was a blessing, a barakah in the people of Yathrib, and that they were aptly called the Ansar, right? Those who gave succor and victory and aid to the Prophet ﷺ, even before they even met him, even before they even knew him. Just what they heard about him. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Bayi'uni. This word Bayi'uni is the same word as Ba' yabi'u bay'an, to sell or buy something. So here there is something that was figuratively, metaphorically sold, and something that was bought, and there was a price. So the price that is paid is all these things that the Prophet ﷺ asked them to do or not to do, the whole list. That's the price. And what is the thing that they're buying with that? Jannah, paradise. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أموالهم وأنفسهم بأن لهم الجنة يقاتلون في سبيله ويقتلون وعدا عليه حقا في التوراة والقرآن والإنجيل وفي القرآن وحق التوراة والإنجيل. Allah has bought from the believers their souls بأن لهم الجنة. So this type of bay'ah actually it's strange because our souls, Allah owns those too. It's not like we're selling them back to Him. You can't. He already owns them. And in return for us recognizing that the soul belongs to Him, Allah gives us paradise. So it's one of those, what they say in business, win-win deal. There's no loss here. So the figurative bay'ah is a type of contract. So what were the things that he asked Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ شَيْئًا. That you not associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا تَسْرِقُوا, and not to steal, and not to fornicate or commit adultery, or to kill your children, or to do buhtan, which translates falsely accused, or to disobey. So these were all things that were prohibitions, right? All things they were not to do. And you might say, well, he didn't ask them to do. Where's the commands? They're all prohibitions. And like we said last week, prohibitions usually fall within the category, if we're talking about the tahalli paradigm, and takhliya. These people had just accepted Islam. They were very new to Islam. And so the Prophet ﷺ had to empty them of any of the remnants of Jahiliyyah. So these things were very important. Obviously not to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one. That's actually, you're not Muslim if you do that. But nevertheless they gave bay'ah, right, sort of a confirmation of that in this form. وَلَا تَسْرِقُوا, and not to steal. وَلَا تَزِنُوا, and not to fornicate. These things were also looked down upon in their society to begin with. Stealing and zina. In Jahiliyyah they had different forms of relationships between men and women. Amongst them was marriage, as we understand it, between a man and woman, a commitment for life or until divorce. And there are other forms also. There was zina, there was illicit relationships between men and women. But it was looked down upon. It wasn't something that wasn't honorable. Even though it was what we call a Jahili society, Jahiliyyah has more to do not because of their blind ignorance, but because of hamiyyat al-Jahiliyyah. Hamiyyah means acting upon your passions, not thinking things through. So sometimes they would act upon their passions even though they thought it to be an honorable thing to do. So they would, have these battles and prolonged wars for the flimsiest of reasons. And they thought that was the way to prove one's honor. But they were mistaken in that, obviously. So these were looked down upon even in their society. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ, and not to kill your children. So the question here is, why does it mention children specifically? If killing in general is wrong, obviously. But children specifically are mentioned because there's also a kind of aspect to it that's related to the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason that people would kill their children back then is one of two reasons. Either, again, they erroneously thought that having daughters was not as honorable as having sons, so some of them would kill their daughters. That was one reason. And the other reason is either they were in a state of poverty or they were afraid to fall into a state of poverty on account of their children. And the Quran specifically mentions these two reasons in it. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ مِنْ إِمْلَاقٍ وَخَشْيَةِ إِمْلَاقٍ. Min imlaq means you're already in a state of poverty and you're not sure how to provide for them. Khashyat al-imlaq means that you may fall into that state of poverty. So both of those reasons. So here, the specificity of talking about children, awladakum, because it means a lack of confidence and tawakkul, reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you think that you can trick fate or trick Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by removing one of the children that Allah actually gave you to begin with, then there's a bigger issue even just than the actual doing harm to your children, which is your lack of faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our general principle is that every child comes with his sustenance. Every child that's born to someone, to a couple, will come with his own sustenance. And that should never be a reason to worry about having children that they will not be provided for. وَلَا تَأْتُوا بِبُهْتَانٍ تَفْتَرُونَهُ بَيْنَ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَأَرْجُلِكُمْ. The buhtan is one of the sins of the tongue. And it has a specific meaning here. There are other sins like al-ghiba. And ghiba is generally translated as backbiting. And that's to mention something about someone else behind their back that they would not like if they were actually there to hear it. That's the definition. وَإِنْ كَانَ فِيهِ, like the Prophet ﷺ. And even if it's true about them. Even if it's true. So if you said something like, they said that if you mention someone, even something they own, in a way that they would not like if I'm trying to tell you, yeah, you remember that guy who comes to the lesson? He's the short, fat, bald guy, remember him? If that person were around to hear that, they would dislike that. Even though I didn't mention by name, and I'm giving a description. Or if I said, yeah, you know that guy, the one who comes in that beat up 1972 Dustin? Again, I'm mentioning something about him specifically, but he would dislike it if I talked about him this way. That's a type of ghiba, and that's terrible. And ghiba is one of the kaba'ir, one of the major sins. Buhtan is worse. Buhtan is actually a lie. It's not true, number one. And number two, you do it in a way to humiliate. So they said buhtan has the aspect of saying something not right about someone, and the additional aspect of humiliation. Fadiha. Ma'al fadiha. So it's not specific, as in the translation here, about chaste women. That's one form of it, but it's not the only form. So anything that you say about someone that's what we call iftira, taqawwal. Yani saying something, you completely made it up, doesn't really have semblance of truth, and you do it so you can humiliate that person. And when I say sins of the tongue, it doesn't mean literally something you said. We have so many ways now to say things about people. Right? Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and I don't know the other things. All the social media things, all that. That's a way that people now do buhtan openly, and people actually, not only hear about it, but they show their participation by hitting the like button or retweeting. Right? It's like Shaitan couldn't come up with a better system. You know, it's easy to spread those rumors, and it's quite easy for people to be enamored with it and follow it, and it can spread to millions of people instantly. It's like he can sit back, you know, in the reclining chair and put his feet up. He doesn't have to do anything. It's all taken care of. Right? And this is type of how enmity and rancor and hatred spread amongst people. All this type of rumor and innuendo. And it's amazing how people, like, they'll see something on Facebook, like a clip of a video or something like that, and it's like gospel. It's got to be true. You know, look, you know, the video's there and everything. And what people don't understand, that's a type of buhtan. Right? When some people, unfortunately, they'll bring like a clip of even a scholar saying something, 2 or 3 seconds, taken completely out of context, and then they put a title underneath, right, that may or may not have anything to do with what they actually said. But it's done. It's done. It's too late. That thought's already been put out, and now that person is left in position just to defend it. That's buhtan. That's a type of buhtan. What damage?
Like what you said, this example, they would later.
Yeah, but the damage has been done. Even in this case, even in traditional buhtan, before there was social media, when rumors spread, what happened to Sayyidah Aisha? That's buhtan. They spread that false rumor about her, and to the degree that she was very, very deeply hurt, and the believers were deeply hurt, and the Prophet ﷺ was deeply hurt. What? And the Quran says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُحِبُّونَ أَن تُشِيعَ الْفَاحِشَةَ. We didn't say the people who spread it only. It's talking about the people who like the thing to be spread. To me, that's like in neon lights, gossip mongers. That's what he's talking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. When you like that type of innuendo and those type of rumors, and you're the type of person who loves to pick up National Enquirer and look inside and see what's going on and all that, something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Asif, I'm sorry, but that's crossing the line. What is it that you're spreading rumors about? And people love that. It's become a cottage industry. So-called celebrities and things like this, and TMZ and what they do and what they don't do, and who they're with and who they weren't with, and people spend hours on the internet just following that stuff. Yes, that happens to some of them. That's the Hajj punishment. Hajj al-Muhsanat, which is to falsely accuse someone either of adultery or being the son or daughter of an adulterer, is punishable by a Hajj punishment, which is pretty lasting. So this buhtan, تفترونه. الافتراء means to completely make it up. بين أيديكم وأرجلكم. They're different about what this phrase actually means. We didn't even translate it. بين أيديكم وأرجلكم literally it means between your hands or your arms and your legs. So they said, what does that mean? To spread something between your arms and your legs. Various interpretations about what that means. The most traditional interpretations say that it's a metaphorical phrase or Arabic. That which your arms have earned, which is, like a paraphrase of that which you have earned, what you have done. Or the thing that's in between your aidi, what arjul is your heart. The thing that's in between your arms and your legs is your heart. So you made it up in your heart first and then you spread it. But I was thinking today a little bit about this phrase, and to me it's hands and feet that spread news, that can spread rumors. So this idea, تَفْتَرُونَ بَيْنَ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَأَرْجُلِكُمْ, you spread it far and wide. And like I said, we have a system now of internet and social media that in an instant the thing could be put out there, and then it doesn't matter the corrections afterwards, people usually forget about that. They see that the initial damage has been done. So we should be real careful about what we put out on social media, or how we talk about other people. Spreading even, someone sent you a clip, and it's just like, all these clips people putting like, we all feel terrible, and it's what's going on in many parts of the Muslim world, and people having to kill and stuff like that. But to spread pictures of their bodies, and things like that, that's not the level. There's a way to make people aware of that without having to very that's my little thing. That's how I feel about it. What's the best action? Blow off. I agree with there has to be awareness, and that has to be that we forsake our principles and do. Like we said last week, you can't get to ma'roof, you can't get to what's good and what's an objective, a good goal, except by a means that's also the same. So, I think I'm going to stop here, because the rest of this is kind of a little discussion about Kafara and the creation of things, so I'm going to say that for next week. And if there are any questions, then we can take them now. It's on PDF. I'm not just I have a small mental commentary that's by the same author. Company with people, like you said, so you have to seek out. لا تصحب من الله يؤمنك الله من يؤمنك حالك. Don't be probably someone who expects to fully raise his Allah. The mind is Allah. And here a khutbah means like you take a level, like a friend that goes out to that person. We have levels of that not everybody is those particular ones where and the majority of things kind of do like that. Then you have a larger group of people who have maybe a few things in common. And then you have other we're talking here about real company, someone who's like trying to grow with, and those are the people that and then others. family relationship is a big haram. But maintaining family relationship doesn't mean that you have to, validate everything they do. Just means you ask about them, you visit them often enough, so that you're not considered to have cut off the relationship. And that's whether your relative is a Muslim or not. You can't have an excuse, well, they drink alcohol, they do this. They're not Muslim, but still you maintain the relationship. That means even if they're kind of rough with you, racist. Because remember, you're not doing this relationship for them. When you talk about, he said even that one of those meetings is even if there's some blowback your way, that doesn't stop you from doing what you feel is right. That's it. But just maintaining it. You call them up, you send them emails, you send them cards. Don't be considered someone who cut them. Don't say they cut me off, so I'm going to cut them off. Don't do that. Because at that point, you have damaged it. But if you try to still ask about them, still try to then at least you're not in the category of someone who cut them off. That's all.
Just like Allah asks you to worship, the physical one, He might ask you to personally deliver. The different possibilities. It might be the most difficult. You have a question? Prophets, if you read about them in the Quran, they had a lot of trials with their religion. Originally, Noah, his son was physical, his wife was physical. Lot, his wife also was physical. So they had this experience. Jesus alayhi salam was born with God together. Outside level. life and death, so that we may be tested who is the best. We're so close to this one. Always. And in eternity,
Sabab means difficult, right. It's not going to be easy. You need to do everything right. If that were the case, it would have been right for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he died and he barely had one slice of bread in the cupboard. And he was in debt to one of the Jewish tribesmen. Not the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in terms of the material world. So it's meaningless. But what's meaningful is this, how you deal with all of it. So you have contentment with your circumstances, they're not under your control, while lack of contentment with the level you're at. You can always do better. So don't be content with that. Don't be content with yourself. And how you deal with your circumstances, but be content in that what Allah